Welcome, everybody, to the Orange Wheel podcast, the podcast where we support business leaders in understanding Bitcoin and the monetary transition. I'm joined today by Riccardo Biffi. Ricardo and I have met a few times virtually. Ricardo is a fellow Bitcoin entrepreneur coming from a professional background and moving into kind of a Bitcoin specific entrepreneurial career path. Thanks so much for joining today, Ricardo.
Thanks to you for this opportunity.
Glad to have you. So it'd be great to hear a bit about your origin story, your journey to where you are today. It'd be great if you could maybe just elaborate for a few minutes on your path from IT consulting for financial clients to your current Bitcoin entrepreneurial position today.
Sure. Well, I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of consulting or financial services at all. But what happened once
I won't hold it against you. That's all right.
What happened once I got my degree? I got a phone call from this company. They offered me a good job position, and I was a student. I was eager to get my hands dirty after all the years in university. So maybe in a very naive way, I accepted. And with them, I started building websites, apps, services for bank and insurance companies. And then what happened? In 2021, I had my first contact with crypto, thanks to a colleague, or should I blame him? I don't know yet. And I was drawn in by the technological novelty, even the buzzwords, and also the promise of easy profits. I guess this is a very common story between Bitcoiners. Anyway, I approached it from a technical angle, and I went quite in depth to the point that I was writing smart contracts and started a tokenization venture with a friend some years later. Fortunately, in 2023, I don't know why, I don't remember why, but I began reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts about Bitcoin. And little by little, I started to realize that I was spending my time on activities like DeFi and technologies like the Ethereum virtual machine that wouldn't benefit anybody in the long run. So after a while, I decided to focus on Bitcoin only because I finally understood its motivation and how it operated. I didn't understand them before. I thought it was slow and archaic. But then I fully agree on them. Meanwhile, I kept working my fiat job. At the time, I was working for a large Italian bank as a process automator. Basically, I was replacing manual processes with automated ones. And I was leading a team of three people interacting with the client every day. However, as the time went on, I couldn't ignore that what I was doing at work and what I was learning in my free time about Bitcoin were out of sync, misaligned. Really, I felt like a cog in a machine, functioning, but still not doing anything useful to address a problem that I was starting to see more clearly day after day. So over the month, this mismatch between what I felt and what I was doing grew stronger and stronger. And even though the client was great, my colleagues were lovely, and the project were interesting. In June, I decided to resign without having another job lined up. And after 11 years of work, in October, I worked on my last day. And since then, in these months, I've started building an online presence and expanding my project portfolio to make myself known and hopefully to get hired by a Bitcoin company.
Awesome. No, it's a great story. I mean, I certainly can resonate with that conflict you have when you kind of have a particular job, but your kind of heart and soul is focused on Bitcoin and recognizing the importance and imperativeness of the transition towards Bitcoin. And I too had a similar quandary in having to kind of make that decision to leave quite well-paid job and so forth to pursue what I felt was both interesting and I think morally good for society. So you're not alone in that, which is good. And I think as you kind of go out into the Bitcoin network and engage more directly in from a professional angle, I think you'll find lots of um, people who share a similar ethos.
Yeah.
But that's great. So you kind of talked about working on, Ethereum, smart contracts, EVMs, prior to kind of going Bitcoin only. What what was was there an aha moment? I mean, what you kind of mentioned that you kind of realized the other blockchains weren't necessarily going to provide value in the long run. Maybe just elaborate a bit on what your thinking was in that to come to that conclusion.
Yeah. So while I was listening, watching, reading, I had many epiphanies as I went down the rabbit hole. One that I remember clearly happened while I was watching Robert Britzloff What is Money show, especially the episodes where he interviewed Sailor. And I remember that understanding the connection between Bitcoin and the physical and economic world clicked for me and cleared up several conceptual doubts that I had at the time, and that the other altcoins didn't. It wasn't even a topic for them. So understanding this. Yeah. Also the idea. Sailor said at one point that the idea that the man who wins is the one that is able to produce and harness energy more effectively than the others. Also, this stuck with me, which is the difference between Bitcoin and the other chains. And but not also this. Another moment that came to me right now is recently I read the book Praxeology by Knut Svanholm. Um, uh, it explains in a very logical way how Austrian economics is rooted in human action and the subjectivity of value. And starting from these axioms, it explains how value, work, money, market, capital, they are all connected, and they are very clear. I mean, it wasn't before. After reading that book, it is very clear to me how all this works. And I also have to thank Giacomo Zucco, because he helped me to truly understand some design choices, technical design choices about Bitcoin, and how the money have been virtualized over time. Uh, there are many moments that I can talk about, but I'll stop here.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, that's great.
ma-
I mean, I think it's really
this-
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I can just add another piece. I decided to commit myself to Bitcoin because I believe that the current economic situation is unsustainable, and that Bitcoin visions allow us to build a better model of living in a way. Many people don't realize what has been happening for decades in the fiat world, while others do realize but have accepted this as the rules of the game. And what they see is that Bitcoin is for those people that no longer want to play a game where the ones that writes the rule can and will, in a very subtle way exploit other people's resources. So I want to spread the message that is, guys, there is an alternative out there, and I want to give my contribution to this cause.
Love it. No, amazing. That's really, as I mentioned, it's great to see there's certainly a moral ethos that kind of drives a lot of Bitcoiners, right? I think from the outside world, we're often seen as, oh, we're just trying to pump our own bags. We're just trying to sell Bitcoin on other people so that our stack goes up. And really, I think the real truth is that most of us are primarily driven from a point of wanting to kind of have a positive impact on the world. So totally amen, brother, to all of that. And I think it's interesting, this praxeology thing. I think I will have to read this book. It's the first time it's come on my radar. I, of course, know Knut through his podcast, but it's I'm personally a big fan of Austrian economics, and that's part of what kind of made Bitcoin click for me, and it'd be great to kind of read his book on that. Yeah, that's good. And I think the last comment, just reflection, is that kind of connection between Bitcoin and the physical world through energy. I think that's also a very underappreciated point and crucial one. It really gives Bitcoin its value, quote unquote. What makes Bitcoin work is that proof of work function, the Bitcoin network, the hash rate. A lot of people are just like, oh, Bitcoin's just, it's not backed by anything. It's completely virtual. And I think the beautiful thing is that it is digital and yet still tied to the physical world through energy. And I think that's a really clever design feature by Satoshi, of course.
It is.
Maybe just one question for you. So you mentioned a third person there who, was it Jack? Nah.
Giacomo,
Okay, I'm not familiar with this. Can you just elaborate a bit more on who this person is?
okay. It's the director of the Plan B network. Plan B network is the company that organizes the Plan B forum, which happened in Lugano last month, I guess, and also in El Salvador. I mean, he's Italian and he's very influential to Italians because, yeah, it's one of us.
Okay.
Anyway, it's also very famous in the international context.
And his name again is Jacobobo?
Giacomo.
Giacomo. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. No, I'm unfortunately not as familiar with the whole Plan B conference. I really want to go one day, and I want to visit Lugano. I want to see what it's all about, meet that network. But I'm
Sure.
here in Northern Europe. I'm kind of a little bit detached from it. So would love to. Have you been to Lugano yourself? Have you spent time there?
Yeah, I've been. Well, I'll talk about it later. I want to talk about the experience I had in my education. My education in Bitcoin is made by Plan B Network, so I'll talk about it later.
Okay, super cool. So with that, let's talk about, in your LinkedIn profile, for example, you talk about how you can speak both code and business. Maybe just explain a little bit about what that means.
Oh, yes, of course. It's a good slogan. Well, the coding part is straightforward. I have a degree in computer science and I've been doing this job for 11 years. Over the years, I've gone from junior to senior, and I've pretty much seen not everything, but a lot of stuff. My experience is in designing and developing software products, and this has given me a kind of sensitivity you only get with time. In short, I speak code because I'm able to read code, to write code, to read other people's code, but also in a way read between the lines and understand the intention behind it and whether is heading to the right direction. Instead, the business part is quite recent. I don't have a formal training in business, but I realize I do have a natural inclination for it. This summer, I attended the Plan B Network Business School, where for over 3 months we talked about business non-stop. I found it very interesting, and I realized I can contribute in this area, also in the business area. Specifically, I noticed I'm good at understanding what's actually important to focus on, what is instead nice to have, and what is a distraction that mostly serves somebody's ego to just do the thing, but it has no business utility. And I think this is essential in business. Well, I admit that I'm a perfectionist, or I used to be. I used to spend too much time on details, usually trying to create pixel perfect user interfaces. I really love it, or trying very hard to write high quality code. But what I understand now is that sometimes it makes sense to do that, and sometimes it doesn't. So to sum up, the fact that I can handle code and also understand where to direct the effort for a project or company makes me a sort of bridge between the two worlds. The technical world, where you have great engineers who tend to spend too much time on things that don't matter, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And the business world, where you have brilliant entrepreneurs that unfortunately don't understand the technical trade-off that makes software hard to build or insecure. I'll give you an example of this. I recently, like a couple of months ago, I took part in a Bitcoin and AI hackathon, and there everybody was technical. It was an hackathon, but the judging criteria for evaluating our projects were very clear. It was very clear what the judges cared about and what not. But despite that, at the end, during the presentation of the project, many teams just built their idea while completely ignoring what the judges actually cared about. And instead, my approach was we know how we'll be evaluated. Let's only focus on what gets us the highest score. And long story short, we won. I don't know if this is coincidence, but I just say that this approach in the last years helped me to reach excellency in many times. I also win another hackathon in the same way, just by focusing on what mattered. I think this is very important skill to have because it's not very common in my opinion.
Certainly. Yeah, no, I think that's you bring up the kind of, the combination of being able to kind of really design the right products, have good enough on the design and technical side, but then, as you said, kind of understanding what the customer wants, so to speak, right? So there's kind of this like product-led approach, which is a bit more on the kind of left side brain thinkers who get deep into the details, and then the customer-driven approach is a bit more right side of the brain. So I think if you can be sufficiently good at both, I think that's really a valuable combination. I totally agree with that. Really cool. That's awesome on the hackathon side. That's I'd love to see kind of the results of that at some point. So given that you do have some technical background, that you know how to code, that you can kind of analyze other people's code, understand the intentions a little bit, or at least surmise the intentions. When you apply that to the Bitcoin space, what do you think of the kind of landscape of tools that are being built right now? And what do you think? What are some insights that you have? What do you think is interesting? Where do you see gaps? Maybe what's your perspective out there right now today?
So there have been a couple of innovations in Bitcoin lately, and I think I'll just talk about two of them to not be too long. I think RGB is I'm really excited about it, and also Arcade. I'll just introduce it briefly. RGB is a new protocol that essentially enables to issuance and transfer digital assets on top of Bitcoin, like token, NFTs, contracts, and so on. It works by keeping the smart contract logic and also the assets off-chain. And Bitcoin is only used as a commitment layer to secure the ownership of these tokens. This helps scalability and security. And also the ownership state of the assets is tied to the Bitcoin UTXOs. UTXOs are like the single coins we have on chain. It's like you can imagine it like a single coin. And they introduced the concept called single-use seals, meaning that when you make a transfer of the asset, you can't double spend, essentially. So what happens is when you make a Bitcoin transaction, the associated RGB asset moves with the transaction. The seal breaks, and so double spending is impossible. It's a way to transfer digital assets at the same time when moving UTXOs. The problem here is that who checks and validates this is the problem, and RGB does that with client-side validation, meaning that only the parties involved in the transaction need to verify that the current transaction, all the history, and the contract involved are correct and relevant for the people, and instead of the entire network validating all the state changes. So if I send you an asset or RGB, just me and you need to agree that everything is okay, nobody else. And this is good for privacy. And what else? So we can try to give you an example of this. For example, I can define a contract to mint a new asset like USDT, just to give one. And this asset has a state, like who own what, and a set a set of operation I can do with it, like sending, receiving, or freezing. Okay. If I send you some USDTs, I add this transaction to the contract, everything off chain, so the Bitcoin chain doesn't see anything. I sign it, you validate it, and you sign it too. And we are done. We go on chain only when the contract changes. Otherwise, we don't need to go on chain. There is an implementation of RGB which is named KaleidoSwap. KaleidoSwap is like a swap of it's a software to swap RGB assets. It's already in mainnet. You can look it up if you want, and it allows, for example, to swap USDTs for SATs. And since it is implemented on Lightning, it is instant and completely private. And I believe that the UX still needs improving, but if you compare KaleidoSwap to the swap of the DeFi in Ethereum or other AVM blockchains, they provide a much better experience, in my opinion. It's much more secure. You don't have, validators can't run tricks to exploit you. There's no slippage. There is a lot of advantages if you look at it up. And I'd like now to talk about Arcade. Arcade is the implementation of the ARC protocol. And briefly, ARC protocol goal is to enable Bitcoin transaction at a very low cost without requiring extensive setup like Lightning channels. In fact, the idea is Lightning channels, it's a contract between two parties, and the contract is written in a UTXO. What Arc does is introduce a concept of shared UTXOs that are like pieces of UTXOs that are exchanged off chain between hundreds of thousands of users. So instead of having something between two people, we can have one UTXO, you can have a share of this coin, and you can exchange it off chain and then go on chain when you need it. These shares are called virtual UTXOs, and Arcade does exactly this, introduce the virtual UTXOs concept. And this is what allows it to scale. Differently from Lightning Network, Arc is not a network, since there is a central party, the Arc server, which coordinates virtual UTXOs creation and transfer. So you don't have a network, you have a server between me and you when we send shares. I won't go into the details of how that happens. Just know that this way Arc allows for instant payments, and after a delay, you can always go back to Bitcoin. The delays are very, very short. Users always hold the virtual UTXOs and can always go back to the corresponding UTXO on chain without the Arc server control. So it's unilateral exit. This is Arc. Arcade is just the execution layer built on top of Arc, and it allows to make Bitcoin programmable. Arcade introduces a scripting language named Arcade Script. It allows to build smart contracts, for example, to make swap on Lightnings, build and scroll contracts, or synthetic assets, or Oracle data, or even prediction markets. You can try their wallet. It's on arcade.money. This is the website. You can try it out. And to sum it up, between the two, RGB and Arcade sounds very similar, but they are not. The main difference is that RGB is peer-to-peer, while Arcade needs an operator, a central coordinator. RGB also needs the user to store and verify data, and this complicates the creation of tool built on it, while Arcade is very easier because there is the operator. And also RGB isn't thought for high volume and high frequency transaction, while Arcade is, again, because there is the coordinator. So to sum up, RGB is good for tokenization, peer-to-peer transactions, with minimum trust, while Arcade is good for advanced high-frequency financial application. I hope I didn't bore you.
It's a little more technical than I usually get into, but I mean, I personally, I need to get up to speed a little bit on all the tool development out there.
Yeah,
It's an area of weakness for me, so I think it's a good opportunity for me to get
yeah,
at least some awareness of these new things that are being built. It's really cool. I mean, from my perspective, I think an interesting question maybe for you is, are you familiar with the venture capitalist Tim Draper? Okay.
no,
The only reason I bring him up is, he occasionally every 2 months or so he's on Bloomberg or CNBC, and he's a big proponent of Bitcoin. His view is that the analogy he uses is that in the 80s there were a lot of different operating systems that came out for the PCs for personal computers, but ultimately, Microsoft was the one that took the best of each of them and integrated it into the Windows platform. And I don't think it's a perfect analogy, but he's sort of saying the same with Bitcoin. He thinks that we're moving to a kind of single chain world for most everything. It's going to be on Bitcoin, and the good stuff that Ethereum develops or that Solana develops or whatever will be layered on top through layer 1, 2, 3 applications. So do you sort of see it evolving in a similar manner in terms of how the space will evolve in terms of other blockchains?
yes, and I'll cite Paolo Arduino, the CEO of Tether, that said that everything returns to Bitcoin. And what we have seen during the years is when Bitcoin was born, it has been copied and modified 1,000 times. But what we are seeing right now is that as time passes, we are seeing everything that has been built outside of Bitcoin, like smart contracts, tokenization, stablecoins, DeFi. They're slowly coming back to Bitcoin, and they're doing this in these months thanks to tools like RGB and Arcade. This is exactly what we are doing right now.
Cool. That's awesome. It's an interesting way to think about it, right? There's kind of like, there's experimentation on all this sort of different cryptos, different blockchains, and then the good stuff gets like a magnet back into the original things. It's a funny, if you think of it as a life form, it's an interesting evolution in that regard. Okay, very cool. So maybe moving on, you were selected for both the tech and biz tracks in the Plan B network and in their top 21. So maybe explain a little bit about that experience with Plan B network. I mean, it's something new for me. I mean, I knew about Plan B. I've just now kind of dug a little bit into the Plan B network and understanding what's going on. It seems really interesting. Maybe just shed a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, sure. It was a blast. First of all, the tech school and the business school are Plan B network live classes to learn respectively technical skills to develop software around Bitcoin and business-oriented understanding of Bitcoin ecosystem from strategy to go-to-market. Are the two classes. Each course consists of 3 months of master classes with leaders, experts in their field, like Adam Beck or Peter Todd for the tech school, and Jeff Booth or Lynn Alden for the business school. We have met them in person.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. During the classes, we are tested with questionnaires and assignments from some major Bitcoin companies. And this is how the 21 best students are selected, and they are allowed to join the additional summer school week, where we meet physically to have intensive classes, workshops, and boot camps all together. For me, it has been an incredible opportunity to meet the experts and also the companies, but also to bond with other students. And it also gave me the chance to go to San Salvador, which I've never been outside of Europe, so it was a very good experience. Anyway, the goal of the courses is to teach professionals about Bitcoin and also to teach Bitcoiners on how things work in a professional way. So the goal is to create new professionals that are employable in Bitcoin companies. If I have to say what is the best thing that I learned from the tech school, it was open source development. I am a developer, but I've never approached open source software. There are dynamics that I wasn't aware of, like the importance of a community in review and maintenance. And as for the business school, it was almost everything new for me. I learned a lot, but what struck me the most was how hard it is for Bitcoin companies to find and sustain a profitable business model. For example, given the open source nature of the products, it's very hard to monetize on it. But these experiences changed me for the better, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. So the in-person selection, is there 21 individuals
Yeah.
selected, and is it like it's an annual basis, like each year or each semester they bring the 21 best together in person?
Each year, there is one technical school and one business school. Everybody can participate. In the tech school, there were like 130 people. In the business school, there were more than 300 people joining. But then, after the selections and the assignment, only 21 go to Lugano, usually, or San Salvador.
Sounds awesome. That sounds really cool. What were the other people, when you met in person, who were part of that selection? Can you maybe just give a feel for who these other folks were?
Oh yeah, from the countries.
Yeah, like their backgrounds and where they came from.
Oh yeah, well, people came from Taiwan, Serbia, a lot of from San Salvador because they have Cubo Plus, which is an education program to educate, to create professionals in San Salvador. So there were like out of 21, from 8 were from San Salvador. Well, from the tech school, their background was usually web development, or some guys were also integrated system developers, so more about hardware. From the business school, there were entrepreneurs, but also students wanting to be entrepreneurs, and people more bounded to legal stuff or copywriting. It was much more diverse, the business school participations. In the technical school, they were all techie guys. It was easier, less variability.
Awesome. No, sounds super cool. I'll have to kind of like dig in. I'm digging now into the Plan B Academy. I'm surprised I haven't heard of this before, actually. But just kind of browsing the website, there sounds like there's a really interesting educational content there and a cool network. So I'll have to spend some time, educating myself on this.
There are a lot of free courses, and I suggest people to take them because they are very well done.
Certainly. Yeah, if you folks like Lynn Alden and Adam Back involved, it's certainly top tier. Okay, let's talk about culture a little bit as we kind of wind up here. It'd be great to hear a little bit about your perspective on the Bitcoin community within Italy. You're based in Trieste, which I think has really interesting history, having been part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Italian kingdom and so forth. It would be great to hear how you see Bitcoin culture evolving in your area in Trieste, in Italy more generally, maybe Southern Europe more broadly. What's your view here, and how do you intend to participate in that?
Okay. Well, in Trieste, there is already a community. It's not very much active, and I like to fix this sooner or later. But there is something. And more broadly, well, let me tell you first that Italy has one of the worst taxation on crypto activities, like the bureaucrats call them, in all of the world, probably. And actually, this is good because it reinforces the Italians' natural resistance to the state. I think it was Rothbard, the American anarcho-capitalist, that said that Italians, for historical reasons, have a strong tendency to evade taxes, have widespread information economies, have a general distrust of central authorities, and also have this cultural ability to find sly roundabout ways to bypass bureaucracy.
Okay.
I confirm all of this, it's all true. And so it's not a surprise that Bitcoin is easily understood here in Italy. Unfortunately, it's not as easily adopted for friction issues like self-custody, inheritance, losing keys. This is a widespread problem. I'd like to talk it maybe in another occasion, but that's why it's not adopted so much. But it's very easily understood. And at the moment, Italy is divided in two. In the north, there are many big Bitcoin communities, while in the south, I only know of some individuals, not big communities. The biggest one are in Milan and in the Venice region, but more or less smaller communities are everywhere. I mean, in my region, there are three, and I consider my region not one of the least active. Oh yeah, there is also Bitcoin Valley. Bitcoin Valley is a city, Rovereto, has been orange pilled by an entrepreneur, and almost everybody there is accepting Bitcoin since
Wow.
years. Like restaurants, coffees, shops. If you go to Rovereto, which is Bitcoin Valley, you can spend your Bitcoin very easily. Um,
So where is this town, Rovedo? It's in the north. It looks like it's in
it's
the
in the north,
Dolomite.
yes. It's in Trento, Trentino. Yeah, right. Sorry,
Ah, okay.
Trentino.
Yeah, really interesting. So that's kind of close to the Austrian border. Is that right? It's kind of in
Uh-huh.
Südtirol. Is that right? Okay, lovely. I'll have to visit it sometime. That's it looks beautiful for being out in nature as well.
Yeah, for vacations, very good. Just to end up, meanwhile in Europe, I mean, Italy is doing well, and what I like about Italy is that we are witnessing a slow but steady grassroots growth in Italy. So it's not imposed, but there is demand for untraceable payments, sovereignty, and this is very good. Meanwhile, in Europe, regulation is getting heavier, like with MiCA or new IML rules, and so is taxation. Many yes countries are raising taxes in this period. But at the same time, like a biological reaction to an external threat, there are more companies like energy, manufacturing, or fintech that are exploring Bitcoin as an infrastructure and that feel a pull towards privacy and self custody, especially in Germany, Austria, and the North countries that are known to be more loyal to the state than the South countries of Europe. So I expect Bitcoin to become more practical and less ideological in public. While behind the scenes, I think that the ideological core will reach more people as the centralized system try to overreach more and more.
Yeah, really good perspectives. I tend to agree with you. This view on it's interesting because here in Denmark, I think the adoption is quite slow for the kind of opposite reason as what you brought up. You mentioned that in Italy, there's like inherent mistrust of government.
Yeah.
Here in Denmark, there's very high trust in government. So if the government is not a proponent or sowing distrust towards Bitcoin, if they don't have a good position towards it, then the general population believes them and stays away, right? So it can flip at some point if the government gets on board, but for now, I think that's really what's holding the adoption back here. But then, yeah, the interesting view you have, I tend to agree also, as the current economic econo-political system reaches its breaking point, I think we will see more grassroots adoption as people recognize that they need to kind of protect themselves from an overreaching state. So really interesting perspectives there. There's one other thing that I saw on your profile about the Bitcare forum.
Yeah.
Maybe just say a few words about what that is.
Yeah, the Bitcare Forum is simply the biggest Bitcoin only Italian conference we have. Last year, I think it sold out with 1,200 tickets, so more than 1,000.
Wow.
And this year will be even bigger. It is done in Brescia, near Milan. It hosts a mix of builders, creators, small businesses, owners, and it's very grounded. It's a very grounded vibe, like we were talking before. Last year, one of the main topics was energy and mining. There were a lot of people interested in how to set up a home mining system, and also there were industrial players explaining how they operate with Bitcoin. Energy producer industrial players. So it was very interesting to see the demand from the little guys and how the big players use the mining. And also there were some interest in privacy. There were like talks about Lightning coin joins and workshops about wallet hygiene. And there were also bazaar where small businesses could sell their products for sats, and also many workshops. So all in all, I'm very proud that uh, a Bitcoin event that important is hosted in Italy, and that there is so much people wanting to join.
Really cool. I'll have to follow up with you afterwards just because we're running out of time, but I'd love to learn more about you mentioned the big power producers who are actually integrating Bitcoin. Like, are these like really large utility companies, or what scale of businesses were already indeed doing this?
So there is one, let me check it up really quick. There is one that is made yes, Alps blockchain, I think. Let me check. Yes, Alps blockchain. They are a company that goes around where there are dams that are unused, and they use mining to reactivate them and to have cheap energy. And they had a talk at the Bitcare forum, and it was huge. They have lots of operation. They are very, very, very big. Yeah, in their websites, I think you check it out.
Yeah, really cool. No, that's awesome. Okay, very fascinating. I'll have to dig a bit deeper into that business model. So as we wrap up, Ricardo, it'd be great to hear, what do you have planned next for the next, year or so? What's on your radar in terms of what you expect to build, the services you provide, the events you have on your radar, or people that you want to kind of, reach out to and network with? What's your plan?
Well, at the moment, I'm looking for a collaboration for a job, but I really love to focus on to find a solution to the self-custody problem. The problem is that its user experience is not ideal, and it's very easy. People is scared to lose their keys, and they don't have idea how to set up an inheritance plan. I'm working with BitVault, which is a company trying to solve these problems. And at the moment, they ask me to find a way to implement the dead man switch, which is a system that the moment you are incapacitated, some software triggers and sends your money to somebody else. I'm trying to find a solution to this problem. And at the moment, I'm also working on translating Praxeology, the book that I told you before in Italian. And I'm working together with a friend to do it. I'm doing it because I believe that it's very important from a logical / philosophical point of view to understand the economics behind Bitcoin. What else? Yeah, I am also. I think that in some weeks I'll start to collaborate with BTC Pay Server to just contributing to the open source project. And I think I'll do that because it's one of the only open source software that use Microsoft programming languages, and I know them. It's very unusual because the open source community doesn't like Microsoft for obvious reasons, but there are some open source projects that use them too. And yeah, I'm also learning some technical tools to work to be a better candidate for develop.
Awesome. That's really cool. Sounds like a really promising career. I think your profile is extremely interesting. I think the experiences you have and perspectives are highly valued within the community right now, especially as businesses grow and continue to experiment and take value propositions to market. So I'm sure you will have a very fulfilling journey in this space. So really keen to keep in touch and see how your year progresses, and maybe meet you in one of these events in Italy. They seem like beautiful venues, so I'd love to kind of come down and meet in person at some point. Before we wrap up, where would people best find you if they want to get in touch?
Well, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best place. It's up to date. I've curated it in the last month after I resigned, and yes, it's the best place. It's still a work in progress. I like to add all my proof of work to my LinkedIn or that will be the main place. I'm also active on Twitter. but LinkedIn is the best.
Awesome. We'll be sure to include your contact deals for both LinkedIn and Twitter in the description of the video here when we go to post. And with that, thanks for your time today. It's been great to go deeper into some of these topics together, Ricardo.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.